When I watch movies, I try to look at them from different perspectives, and I always ask myself, what is the question that this movie is asking the audience? I'm neurodivergent, it's what we do. We look at life in a very complex way. The way I see it, Mean Girls taught us everything that we need to know about what it means to be in the spotlight. Mean Girls. Did we all miss the point?
Kiera loves TV. Yes, I made a theme song so that I can talk about all my favorite shows. Oh yeah.
And this is just your disclaimer that this is not me talking about any of the actors themselves, but more so their characters. Please do not attack me in the comments. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, even those who disagree with me. But let's keep it friendly. All right, let's get started with the show. Mean Girls, full of controversy and problematic in the eyes of many, and all at the same time garners so much adoration from members of Gen Z and millennials. Ever since its release in 2004, there's been a ton of discourse on Mean Girls. This is mostly known for its one-liners, which is why a lot of people really love the movie. So if no one remembers, this was around the era where Lindsay Lohan was doing a bunch of movies. Along with Rachel McAdams, who plays Regina George, we're following the story through the eyes of Catie Heron. She's moved from Africa to attend high school in America for the first time. Catie's parents are anthropologists doing research in Kenya, which is why she's from Africa. I think one of the main attractions about this movie, though, is that they often say things that people think in their head but won't say out loud. And I think that's why this type of comedy, especially in this time period, was such a shock to most people. If you're watching this but you have not watched it before, essentially it really just tackles like growing up in American high school as a teenager and what that's like. Based off of the places that I've gone to school, like I feel like it's pretty accurate. Most of the schools that I've attended, like there's been a hierarchy. I was more like an Eddie Munson in high school, I feel like. And I want to do a video on Eddie Munson at some point, but not now. Back to this video. I think it's very relatable and puts you in the front seat through the eyes of Catie, what it really means to be a high school girl in America. And maybe that's not just in America. My perception is pretty limited, as I've only ever lived in America before, but as relatable as it could have been, as funny as a lot of people think that it was, we have to address the reality. There was a lot of racist stuff that happened in that movie. This is another one of those unfortunate movies where it's like, love the idea, hate the way that it was executed. And of course now there's nothing that we can do about the movie because it came out years ago. However, I think by having these conversations, it's like it helps really put people into the perspective of a person being offended by these things. I watch this stuff and I see the problematic stuff, I see the racist stuff, I see it all, and I can't help but mention it because it's right there in my face. I mean, in truth, I must say, because my talent is being dramatic, I believe that if you just peel back those layers, what you'll really see is the story of the cost of fame. If you have any sort of social media presence, you kind of have to have this mentality like Rick from Rick and Morty.
Your booze mean nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer.
Because when you break it down, just look at this movie. Just look at this movie and look at how Regina cut holes in her shirt where her nips are supposed to be. And people just started doing it. No understanding as to why they're doing it. No understanding as to what the influence was, why, or anything like that. Just doing it because they see someone that they've idolized do that. And that is a reflection of society. Mean Girls teaches us that being at the top is not exactly where you want to be. Because just think about it. Every single one of those girls is living in fear. None of them are happy. Catie's unhappy because she's afraid to be her true self. Regina is crumbling under the pressures of being an it girl and she's afraid of losing control. Gretchen fears becoming irrelevant and being forgotten, hence why she's always mentioning the toaster strudel thing. Janice fears facing the truth about herself, which is that she's become a mean girl despite trying not to be one. And Karen doesn't really fear anything, but she has a lot she should fear. Through watching this movie, we can learn that being the main character is not everything. And sometimes it's not even the safest thing. I mean, we can even take this into real life. Like, look at how many people who are in the limelight, look at how many of them have been through situations where people have stalked them and followed them around, people online leaking their address, people showing up at their house, climbing their gates, just trying to, I don't even know what they're trying to do to the celebrity. Now, of course, as we know, things like this do not happen in the movie, like Regina getting stalked and stuff like that. There's a girl in Mean Girls literally going around bragging to everybody about how Regina assaulted her and loving it. Think about how many people have commented under celebrities' posts and been like, I would literally let you step on my neck. And I know even though they say that they mean it literally, they don't mean it literally. It's just like an exaggeration. Like, I just want you so, so bad is basically the undertone there. But is what happened in Mean Girls really far off from reality? To me, I feel like that's why a lot of people love it, is because it is based in reality. I think that's why even to this day, people make Mean Girls references and talk about it in the way that they do, is because it does reflect a lot of the negative parts of people. Someone online also mentioned that secretly, like, it's so funny that the reason that this whole movie has a plot in the first place is because Janice is Lebanese, but Regina didn't know what that meant and she mistaken it for her being a lesbian. We first meet Catie, and I agree with a lot of people that keep saying stuff like Janice was the villain, because like, she did not have to get Catie in her group at all. She got mad when Catie was successful at becoming one of the plastics. I mean, look at how the story is going from the jump. Like, Catie is one of those people, she's just kind of looking for a group to belong to because she doesn't belong to any group. Think about how relatable that is. It's one of those cases where like you have something about yourself that's so unrelatable, but instead of it being something like a gimmick and it makes you unique and people love it, people have no interest in it at all because it's so different. And that's such a weird thing to think about. Just the simple thought of being so unrelatable that it's not even in a cool way. Something that normally would work for other people does not work for you. Shortly after being introduced to Catie and Janice and Damien, we're introduced to the Plastics. The Plastics are basically this 3-girl band. I'm joking. It's 3 girls and they basically dominate the school. I'm gonna assume that the reason is because they're a lot more rich than everybody else. Janice encourages Catie to lie and sneak around and be all the things that she gets mad at her for being later because she's jealous. And Catie is just morphing herself into someone that she's not. This is what I mean by like the cost of popularity and fame and all of that, because it can be such a slippery slope. I mean, look at how most of society treats celebrities. We live in a culture now where it's like being popular, being famous. I see the way that society treats people who are popular and who have any kind of influence. It's so much hypocrisy. It's so many people just putting on a show and trying to act like they're holier than thou, and in reality they're not. It's such a weird thing because it's like, if you are authentically yourself, then people sit around and try to find every little imperfection about you and put it on full blast. If you're phony, then people try to call you out for being phony, but you're literally just catering to what people are asking for. If you speak up about your situation, you're a liar, because like literally everybody on the internet wants you to be a liar so bad. If you say nothing at all, then they try to make the story like, oh well, so and so doesn't care about, you know, people and whatever, and they don't care about people's feelings. And it's like, why would somebody want to come out with something just to be called a liar about something that they're not lying about? We truly live in one of the weirdest societies I've ever seen, which is not that shocking because this is the only society I've ever known. But anyway, there's just so much hypocrisy in the world, and I think that this movie really highlights that in some kind of undercover ways. But anyways, so Janice basically comes up with this plan where she wants Catie to spy on Regina and like report back to her everything that Regina says, but it totally backfires and she ends up becoming one of the Plastics for real. In fact, she takes over, trying to take Regina down with her friends, exposing her infidelity with her boyfriend, and doing harmful things in regards to her eating disorder, because that's clearly what that is. And I get it, I'm not trying to paint Regina out to be this victim, because she's not. Unless you look at her as a victim to society, constantly trying to fit into what everyone thinks that she should be, so much that she's lost herself. Going back to what I said earlier, these girls are not happy. They are plagued with this constant need to be relevant. It's a reminder that you cannot be all that society wants you to be. Think about it. At one point, society thought that women should not be able to work or drive cars. If you follow everything that society is feeding to you, telling you that this is what life is supposed to be, who are you as a person? If you begin to believe the hype about yourself so much that you end up changing into someone you're not, at the end of the day, what does it even mean? Everyone is going to have an opinion. That's like the foundation for this channel, literally. I think we're all caught up in it. I think that's why we all can still relate to a movie like Mean Girls made in 2004, almost 20 years later, because we still have not learned anything from that. We still haven't evolved as a society so much that we're taking control of our own futures and letting us be the jurors of what's good and what's not, what's hot and what's not. I'll never understand how someone can pick on somebody else for like not wearing a specific brand, because at the end of the day, a brand is literally just a title and it's backed by popularity. I've seen so many posts on TikTok where people are like, there's nothing new going on. There's nothing new happening. Like, everybody's just doing the same thing. And it's like, yeah, what can we honestly expect from a society that is almost brainwashed by the idea of having followers? And I'm not speaking of a place where like I'm separate from that, because I've definitely participated in a lot of these things. Believing in cancel culture, being judgmental, not having empathy for other people because they're famous. I've been there. I get it. I'm just saying that it's not too late to change those habits. It's not too late to form new ones. It's important to remember that as much as Regina is loved supposedly by everyone, she's hated just as much. It's such a weird thought to think that the only way to climb to the top is with people trying to drag you down. Think about anybody who's constantly in the media. One of the main reasons that they are constantly in the media is because they have so many people who dislike them. There's so many people who want to see them fail. And it's even funnier that the people that hate them are convinced that by spreading the hate on them, it's going to make them go away, but it only fuels their power. Look at the way that Regina just stands there as everybody is finding out everything that's been written in the burn book. It's only increased her relevancy. By everyone reacting to everything and responding to everything, it's only acting as gas for her behavior. Because some people view being hated as a stepping stone into even more popularity. I've seen what people had to say about feminism and about who's really the villain, but if we're not careful, the audience, us as the viewers, we become the villain. If we don't take time to look within ourselves and reflect and think about the role that we're playing online towards people, I feel like we become the villain too. Was it really Regina that was the villain? Was it really Janice? Was it even Catie? Or was it us? Was the message that it's us that's the problem? I just want to say that I appreciate everyone who comes back for another video time and time again. I see you in the comments and I appreciate it so much. I feel like I'm running out of ways to say thank you to people, and yeah, but I'm truly just so thankful. These are just some things to think about. This doesn't mean this was actually the intention of the movie. Obviously, the only one who can actually know what that intention was is the person who made it. But this is how I see it. So now it's time to find out, what do you think about the true message of Mean Girls? Do you even think that there is one? And some people feel like it's just a funny movie and they feel like it was only intended to be funny. That's fine. I hate that this video was late because I actually intended for it to come out on October 3rd, but it didn't, because you know October 3rd is like, you know, Mean Girls Day because of that scene with Catie and Regina's ex-boyfriend. I felt like I had more to say. So yeah. All right, bye.